Buddha and why you should not fear death. The story of King Suradatta and the fear of death. Long ago, in the ancient kingdom of Varanasi, there ruled a wise and just king named Suradatta. Though he was known for his fairness and generosity, he harbored a secret fear that haunted him every night. His fear of death. No matter how much wealth he accumulated, no matter how much power he wielded, he could not escape the thought that one day he would die. One day, unable to bear his fear any longer, King Suradatta gathered his ministers, sages, and scholars and asked them, "Tell me, is there a way to escape death? Is there a way to defeat it?" His advisors hesitated. No one could answer his question. Finally, the royal sage, an elderly monk named Devadatta, spoke. "O king, only one person can truly help you overcome your fear of death. You must seek the Buddha, the awakened one." Seeking the Buddha determined, King Suradatta set out on a journey to find the Buddha, who was staying at a monastery in the city of Rajagaha. Upon reaching the monastery, the king prostrated before the Buddha and said, "O Blessed One, I am tormented by the fear of death. Even in my greatest moments of joy, the shadow of death looms over me. Tell me, is there a way to overcome this fear?" The Buddha smiled compassionately and said, "O king, your fear of death is like a traveler fearing the setting sun. Just as the sun must set after it rises, so too must all who are born one day pass away. But tell me, what is it that you truly fear?" The king hesitated and then replied, "I fear the unknown. I fear losing everything I have, my kingdom, my family, my pleasures. I fear the pain of dying. I fear what comes after." The Buddha nodded. "Let me tell you a story. The parable of the mustard seed. There was once a young woman named Kisa Gotami," the Buddha began. "She was a mother who deeply loved her only child. But one day, her child fell ill and died. Stricken with grief, she carried the child's body from house to house, begging for medicine that could bring him back to life. One kind man told her, 'Go to the Buddha, he will have a cure.' She went to me, weeping, and I said to her, 'Kisa Gotami, to heal your child, you must bring me a handful of mustard seeds from a house where no one has ever lost a loved one.' With renewed hope, she went door to door, asking for mustard seeds. But in every house, she found the same answer. 'We have mustard seeds, but we have also lost a father, a mother, a sister, a brother.' Finally, she understood. Death comes to all. No one escapes it. She returned to me and said, 'O Buddha, I see now that I was blind with grief. I accept that death is part of life.' The Buddha looked at King Suradatta and asked, 'Tell me, O king, if even the lowliest peasant and the mightiest emperor must face death, why do you believe you should be exempt? The nature of death.' The king pondered deeply. 'But Lord, if death is inevitable, does that not make life meaningless?' The Buddha shook his head. 'Not at all. It is precisely because life is temporary that it is precious. Imagine, O king, that you were given a rare and beautiful lotus flower that would only last a single day. Would you spend that day in sorrow, lamenting that it will soon wither? Or would you cherish its fragrance and beauty while it lasts?' 'I would cherish it,' the king admitted. 'In the same way, life is fleeting, but that is what makes it valuable. Instead of fearing death, embrace the life you have now with wisdom and kindness.' The illusion of the self. The king then asked, 'But what happens after death? Do we simply vanish?' The Buddha replied, 'Imagine a candle flame. When one candle lights another, is it the same flame that continues, or is it a new one?' The king thought for a moment and said, 'It is neither the same nor entirely different.' 'Exactly,' said the Buddha. 'Your body, thoughts, and experiences are ever changing. What you call the self is merely a collection of fleeting elements. Just as the flame continues from candle to candle, so too does life continue through karma and rebirth. But there is no unchanging self to fear losing.' Letting go of fear. The king fell silent, contemplating the Buddha's words. Slowly, his fear of death began to dissolve. He realized that death was not an enemy, but a natural part of existence. The key was not to resist it, but to live wisely, with compassion and understanding. 'O Blessed One,' the king said at last, 'you have lifted a great burden from my heart. I see now that fearing death is like fearing the ocean's waves. They rise and fall, but the ocean itself remains. I will no longer waste my life in fear. Instead, I will live with mindfulness, helping others and seeking wisdom. The Buddha smiled. You have understood well, O king. Live righteously, and when the time comes, meet death as one meets an old friend, without fear. The king's transformation. From that day forward, King Suradatta ruled with even greater wisdom and compassion. He no longer clung to his throne, nor did he fear losing his wealth or status. He lived each day as a gift, treasuring every moment and helping his people with a heart free from fear. And when his final day arrived, he closed his eyes with a peaceful smile, unafraid, knowing that death was not an end, but simply another step in the great journey of existence. Conclusion: why you should not fear death. The Buddha's teachings remind us that 1. Death is natural and inevitable. It is part of the cycle of life, just as night follows day. 2. Life's impermanence makes it precious. Instead of fearing death, we should cherish the present moment. 3. The self is an illusion. What we call ourselves is constantly changing. Death is not the destruction of something permanent, but a transition. 4. Good actions continue beyond death. What truly matters is how we live, not how long we live. Compassion, wisdom, and kindness leave a lasting impact. 5. Fear of death vanishes with understanding. Just as King Suradatta found peace, so too can we when we embrace the truth of impermanence. Thus, do not fear death. Instead, live with love, wisdom, and joy. When the time comes, greet it with peace, for it is but a doorway to another journey.